Good day, this is Pastor Michael Mitchell at God's Barn Church. Today I want to talk to you about orphanages and orphans. There's been said that I don't have orphanages, that I don't have them in my name, and that's true. And I'll tell you there's a reason for that. Because if I was to incorporate an orphanage, it would cost me a lot of money that I don't have. They have certain requirements for teachers, so many people there, and all that. It would take a full-time administrator to do that. But you see, if I go in and go, hey, this is a God's Barn Church orphanage, then all the people that are donating will stop donating. Do you understand? They will quit bringing rice and all those things, you see. Also is, keep in mind, and I don't think people understand this, see, at least in Liberia and in Sierra Leone, number one is, all orphans are not orphans. They may have one or two adults still living. They have probably aunts and uncles and cousins and all kinds of people there. But they can't feed them or they have drug problems or whatever. They're in the orphanages. Those children there need to be identified. And perhaps maybe we could do a stipend to help them with their family, see. It's not all what it seems to be. You see, lots of times, like in Sierra Leone, what I was told that when the, was it the Hunta virus or one of them, that they had all these people and die, right? Well, the kids would just show up at the mosque. This is in Sierra Leone. They would just show up at the mosque. They have nowhere to go, nothing to do. And so they lived in the mosque. Now, in Sierra Leone, where Muhammad's at, they had kids living in a mosque, I think up to 7 years old. But we were able to get across the street this amazing building for practically nothing. Nothing. But again, you have a fragile balance there. And you go in there and you flash out a few $100, and these people will quit paying. They probably donate rice or they have organizations that help them, you see. Now, I get orphanages write me, hundreds of them across the globe, hundreds, thousands of them, all throughout Africa. Now that I'm into India, Pakistan, you could not imagine how many orphans there are out there, you see. Now, so far with our money, what we've been able to do is we've been able to, well, when the roof collapsed on a Limbs mosque, it killed 6 kids, and I think they were seriously injured with some spinal cords injury. The others, we were able with they were sleeping under tarps, so we were able to make a zinc building, you know, and get them in air. And then miraculously, a lady says, "Hey, I'm moving out of the country, and just gorgeous building." So we were able to get them in there, and then they were able to take the zinc and put it back on the roof of the mosque. You see, things like that. Also, we had to replace the wells in one orphanage. Replace the well. We had to replace the well in an old folks' home, in a handicapped place, and in a blind center. It's not just orphans, but see, there is a method of this, you see, because I can advertise and present a voice for these people. They're waiting. I get calls every day. You know, last year there was a famine in Kenya, and a guy that was running an orphanage says, "We are down to eating barley water soup." And as the situation gets worse and worse and worse, these people are the amphibians of your society. You see, if you are in an area that has been heavily with pesticide, the first animals that will go are amphibians, like frogs, because they breathe through their skin. You see, fish, they die of that. You know, so you can watch and go, somebody sprayed some bad stuff there. Well, in the same way, when you start having famines and all the problems you're having now, what you have is the amphibians, because the poor, the blind, the elderly, the handicapped, the orphans, they are the ones that will go first. They were the ones that will starve first before it gets to the next echelon of people. It's just the way it is, you see. And what we're trying to do to get this awareness is we're trying to create food depots. Food depots. Get a building somewhere centrally located and fill that thing up with rice sacks as much as you can. And I advise that to all the people. Absolutely. You bet. Try to work off from a surplus. We have people like Victor Canoe who wants to go in there. He wants to photograph every child and get a biography about him, his age, her age, all those facts, you see. And then what we want to do is we want to create an orphanage system. We want to take those pictures and we want to advertise those for sponsorship or adoption. Adoption in their country, at first, everybody should have that. And then run a national program highlighting these kids. Bring awareness to like Liberia and bring awareness to these kids. Take another one in. You just need another bowl there. That's what we need to do. And we can get these orphanages smaller and smaller and smaller. You see, this is always the way when there's famines, disease, pestilence, civil wars. This is what happens. And it creates an orphanage system. In Pakistan and India, there are gangs of kids. There's gangs that run, hundreds, thousands of them that run in the streets. And they're not in an orphanage because there are no orphanages that can take care of these kids. But what I'm trying to do is trying to bring awareness to this. And you shut my mouth on this, you shut the mouth of millions and millions of those kids. Yeah. That's all I can say. I don't know what else to tell you. It's really terrible. What I said is every church or every building we have has an orphanage. Well, LM, we're trying to get him going there. It's an orphanage. And then Muhammad, well, he's got an orphanage. And this kind of turned out that way where it got to where we prefer orphanages. And I'll tell you why. Alim, he raised an orphanage. He adores those kids. Muhammad, he has an orphanage. Victor was an orphan. He was raised in an orphanage. Annie, his wife, works with handicapped, blind people, elderly people, orphanages. We're all tuned into this. The orphanage system, you see. Keep in mind, my ministry is primarily to preach the gospel, you see. That's the main mission of this. But anybody that has any eyes in their head knows that you want to put in a human perspective of it. Giving to somebody, helping people. There's no better guide than orphanages is. Do you realize that some countries, the second largest city they have is the orphans? You know that? And the orphans, of course, in this country, in the world, are our soldiers, rebel soldiers, terrorist soldiers. And the little girls in there become prostitutes. They're sold on the market and all that. That's what happens to them. That's not good. That's not good. But as far as me not having orphanages, I'd have 1 million of them. But I can do better this way, by bringing this to light. And when I get a church or a building, it'll have an orphanage. I guarantee you. That's our passion. But that's the way it is now, you know. But keep in mind, you don't want to upset the status quo on these orphanages. They're very, very, very fragile. Very fragile. You want to assist there. And so far, we've been able to at least provide them emergency services. Wells go out is a biggie. Roofs collapsing in the rain is a big one. Food, of course, always. Christmas, basket, Easter. That's it. But do you want to know something? Do you know what 90% of our budget has went to? Lawyers. Lawyers and judges in courts. Yeah, 90% of our budget so far has went to that. Yep, 90%. Out of $30,000 we've spent, we've only been able to spend $5,000 on the orphans. The other $25,000 is for burying people, people being in jail, imprisoned, people being in a hospital. Yeah. But the court system got us. They wiped us out in Liberia. Wiped us out. Yeah. Never saw a piece of paperwork. And we sent this bond money off, and they go, when the day we got the bond, when a guy gets out of jail, it's yours. The court system is so corrupt. But anyway, I want you to know that. Don't let people destroy the dreams of these children. Because these are our kids that are coming up in the future. And we need them. And these are not Christian kids or Muslim kids or whatever kids. They're kids, babies, little baby girls, little baby boys. Yeah, it's not fun or it's not polite to make comments about not owning an orphanage. It's really sad because we have dedicated our life to these orphans. Yeah, Muhammad knows that. Ask Victor. Ask Alam. Ask Annie. Ask my wife. Yeah. But again, the goal is preach the gospel to the Muslims, which I was given a dream to do. I had a vision to do this. And it's their vision. It's theirs. It's about them. From Allah. Yeah. And this is what I get, how I'm treated by these people. Yeah. Yeah, it hurts. It's really tough. It's really tough for me right now. Because this is just about destroyed us all. Yep. But anyway, you keep that in mind about orphans. Don't let them degenerate the name of God's Barn Church. We're the best thing they got out there for these little babies and kids. And we have 1,000,000 plans for them. But it takes money and it takes resources. You have to go out there to each of these kids and meet them and talk to them and introduce yourself. Take a picture of them. Create a biography of them. Yeah, and there's millions of them. It'll take us the rest of our lives to do this. Just to put their name on a piece of paper. To put it in a computer somewhere. That would be a miracle. That you could go, look at this guy here. And then we got pictures that we can go out and show the public. These beautiful, beautiful kids.